Darkness is here. Demerzel has been reduced to a pool of iridium, and the best brother Day couldn't quite get it done. The finale of Season 3 of Foundation ended on a to be continued and left a lot of questions that won't be resolved until Season 4 gets here. I'm going to get into all of those today, and former showrunner David S. Goyer did a few interviews to help fill in some of the blanks, so I'll be looking at those as well. One of my big questions after I watched the 10th episode of Foundation's 3rd season was whether or not Beta was the real mule. Since this was a deviation from the source material and an effective way to surprise those of us who thought we knew what was coming from reading the books, it was a little hard to be sure this was the final reveal. If the mule used Palu Asbek's pirate as a puppet, how could we be sure that Beta wasn't just puppet number 2? This is something that when I heard Goyer talk about it, I felt pretty confident he cleared it up, and that Beta is the reveal. He wanted to find a twist that would be surprising for show-only watchers and book readers alike, and he settled on Beta because he thought back when Asimov was writing the series, it wouldn't have even occurred to him or his contemporaries to make the villain a woman. If you're still not sure, I get it, but especially after reading the interview with Sanove Carlson, who plays Beta, to me it seems like she believes she's the mule and played the role in Season 3 accordingly. As I said in my finale breakdown, it mostly works. They withheld a lot of her backstory to make it a surprise. So as long as it all adds up when we see more of that, I think it'll be fine. I like the way her story played out in the book, and that can't happen the same way in the show, which is kind of a disappointment, but they could still explore those ideas with Torin and possibly with Brother Dawn. The bigger question now is how her true identity changes things, and what does it mean for Gail, whose sole focus has been this confrontation with the mule, which has now passed. One of the weirder things I saw in the comments after the finale was that there was some confusion about how that ended. Gail compromised Magnifico so that when he played, it didn't have the intended effect, and Gail saw the opportunity to escape and took it. That's all pretty cut and dry for me, and the question is, what do both sides do next? We know the mule will want to find the second foundation to make their victory complete, but we don't know how that'll play out. I mentioned Brother Dawn, and a lot of people thought that maybe I overlooked him because I was talking about how Lee Pace could still be involved after Brother Day's demise, and I assure you I didn't. I was just left with the impression that there won't be a time jump between seasons. I can't say for sure, but it seems to me that most of the changes they made concerning the Ages of Ascension were a way to keep all 3 actors involved. Darkness was the game changer, and his being past the Age of Expiration seems like the most crucial detail. I don't know why you'd have Cassian Bilton put so much into this Dawn's development if the plan was to switch him out with Lee Pace at the beginning of next season. So yes, eventually he will age into the older version, but a big part of this season's conclusion is that Brother Day died trying to free Demerzel. Goyer said some of the characters are really dead, and I'd put my money on Lee Pace's Cleon. Part of the reason I feel even more confident about this a few days after the finale aired is this revelation that surfaced online about the secret signal in Demerzel's final scene. According to the internet, if you look at her eye, it flashes out the message transferred in Morse code. I'll be honest and say I have mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, it's a cool thing for fans to discover, which they did almost as soon as the episode aired. I guess it's nice to have confirmation that Demerzel, the robot who has mentioned that she has a distributed consciousness on different occasions and did just figure out how to enter the Prime Radiant in the last episode, managed to do the things we knew she could do. But on the other hand, what is the in-world explanation for why she'd transmit Morse code while she was doing it? That part is kind of a wash for me, and it's led to some rather convoluted explanations, or I guess theories would be the better way to describe them, about what's happening in that scene. As far as intent goes, I think that's clear. The show presented a scenario where Brother Dusk knew the only way to get out of being vaporized was to create a situation where Demerzel would have to sacrifice herself and thus not be around to send him under the beam. According to Goyer, he rigged the explosives behind Demerzel's back, and part of the reason 23 was able to get away with this and be able to develop the Novacula behind her back was the paradox bomb. Still, he got rid of all the backups lives at the moment they would age out, and of course darkness is supposed to die, so the only entity that could step into the role of Empire is the baby, since she doesn't know Dawn is still alive. I saw several elaborate theories of how Demerzel made this choice because it would put the chip in a position to get destroyed first so that she'd be free, but the whole thing about her programming is that she absolutely can't do something like that intentionally. So I don't know, her directive is to protect the dynasty, and so when darkness threatens the last remaining viable clone to take the throne, it's not a plot hole for her to try to protect it. Sure, there are ways for her to start over if he succeeds. There is still tainted genetic material she can make more clones from, but that's not the point of the scene. The question I have then is, how does Demerzel come back? And they did a pretty good job of setting up the Radiant for that. It survived. She knows it's possible to get in there. It hosted Harry's digital consciousness for over 100 years. Salvor used it to hook up with Vault Harry when Gail was in trouble, and Calais pops in and out from time to time when she needs to. It ticks all the boxes and doesn't require any complicated motivations. You see the infant disappear before she does whatever she does, so even if the chip wasn't destroyed, the clone dynasty as it existed to that point does come to an end. Cleon's law supersedes the other laws, but it doesn't negate them completely, so she should be able to protect her existence according to the third law at that point, regardless of anything else. Another big question then is what's going on with the Brazen Head at the end. Because I was thinking her consciousness would seek refuge in the Prime Radiant, and based on Callie saying it wasn't her when she received the signal for the clasp, I didn't connect that directly to Demerzel. I've heard some decent arguments for it, but again, I'm thinking that if Demerzel wanted to reach out to Calais, she would do that through the Prime Radiant as she did previously. If she's free of Cleon's programming, she would want to clasp, though. That was a big part of her story this season, and based on how the Skull's activation in her room plays out, I can't rule out that she reached out to the Brazen Head when given the chance. I do have the sense that the Brazen Head is a distinct character and not just a way for her to do that, though. In the interviews, Goyer said there are different factions of robots, and the group on the moon has been there since the end of the Robot Wars, waiting for the right time to reveal themselves. My initial interpretation, based on the dialogue, was that the Brazen Head was a robot that was part of a plan that had been unfolding over that long period of time. The second robot, who is named Asterion and who sounds like Lee Pace, says someone succeeded, and then Callie responds that all the pieces are in place. I wouldn't say that solves the mystery about what's going on with Calais, and the whole thing and the provided detail about the factions, one that wasn't willing to work with humans and one that's open to it, make it seem possible that Calais and Demerzel were on opposite sides in the Robot Wars. This starts to seem more like the second Foundation trilogy than Asimov's work, but based on what he said, Goyer hadn't read that. So before I find myself completely in the weeds on that, another big question is how much longer should we expect the show to continue? We know that it's been renewed for season 4, and that Goyer won't likely be returning to the series after his exit midway through season 3. His original plan was for 8 seasons, but he imagined it and pitched it with an off-ramp to end after season 4 or season 6 as well, since 8-season series aren't that common anymore. The good news from season 3 is that his vision has really started to come together, as we've begun to see the payoffs from things he put in place at the beginning of the series. The bad news is that most of the people who worked on it with him won't be returning either, and the budget will likely be reduced. He said a 2-page outline of his 8-season plan exists, and that the new team could have access to it, but otherwise, the new showrunner and writer's room will be starting fresh. It seems like a bad time for that, considering the to-be-continued nature of the current season, and I'm not sure how that bodes for seasons beyond this one. If I had to guess on whether it would be 4, 6, or 8 seasons, in TV's current landscape, 4 seems most likely, but season 3 had a better reception than than the previous two. And Apple does have a lot of money if they want to spend it, so it's possible that if the new team can get the budget down, they might keep going. Out of all the streamers, they seem like the ones who might do the 8 seasons. One of the questions I had going into this season was how they would manage the second half of the Mule story. The first half, which we just watched play out, is a better fit for a TV adaptation, and the show also has to lose the Empire side of the story, which has been responsible for most of its best moments. The solution there is the rise of Brother Darkness, which will help, and I think Gail's betrayal of Vault Harry will as well. These are both elements that didn't exist in the book and should provide some excitement that is tied back to characters and storylines we're invested in. I wouldn't say it's readily apparent what either one of them will do next, beyond injecting chaos while the Mule uses her unique abilities to search for the second foundation. The pirate made things happen. His larger-than-life presence was why he was useful, and shifting focus to Beta involves a shift in tone. On that side of things, I'm interested to see what happens with Gail's team. I think Torrhen's genuine love for Beta, which didn't come about because of conversion, will be important. And remember, Gail initially teamed up with Brother Dawn through his visit to the Imperial Library, which is the Second Foundation's current hideout. I have no idea how Magnifico fits in going forward. He said the Mule saved him, so there's a story there, and they didn't really explain the implications of what Gail did to him in the finale. Minus the relationship with Gail and his mentalic abilities, Pritch's story is similar to what happened to the character in the books, in that he gets converted. Those things make a big difference because, at least before they left Ignis, he knew the Second Foundation's location and what they did, and the Mule should be able to extract that from his converted mind. This makes me wonder about Gail leaving him behind more than the feeling she has for him. Remember, she told Preem it was worse for them if he survived when the First Foundation took him prisoner. And to bring up the First Foundation, they're not supposed to know about the Second Foundation's existence. So Gail's revealing that, and Han being there with the Mule on New Terminus is a significant departure from the books, which makes you wonder why they went in that direction. Beta had that comment about politics at the beginning of the season, where she said that she wished everyone could be a part of one thing. That and her success as an online celebrity highlight what we should expect her to do: win people over. The pirate was the tool she could use for the more unsavory part of her conquest, and now that he's gone, should we expect the nature of her campaign to change completely? Darkness will be opposed because his existence and position of power depend on it, but other than that, you could imagine a lot of people going along for the ride in the chaos that would come from the Foundation falling and Darkness doing what he's doing. And all of that makes me wonder about Harry. There isn't much resistance left in the First Foundation. He made his unhappiness about being the left hand known, and Gail's betrayal likely pushed him over the edge. Is it enough to have him side with the Mule? I guess we'll find out. In the past, the codas at the end of each season set up the time jumps and the shift into new territory. This time around, we saw Calais in the present to further the mystery of how she fits into the equation. As mentioned, I'm not expecting a significant time jump because the finale left me wanting to know what Brother Darkness would do next, now that he's eliminated his obstacles and is the sole ruler of what's left of the Galactic Empire. If Season 3 is any indication, it shouldn't be boring. If Demerzel is in the Radiant, that final shot of him sitting in the throne room takes on new meaning. The finale left me questioning some of my assumptions about the character and what her being Daniil means. But the show did introduce the Zeroth Law this season, and I do expect that if she's free from Cleon the First's chip, then that'll be guiding her next moves. Would allowing 23 to remain in power on Trantor be for the good of humanity? I mean, the current alternative is a mentalic mutant who can convert the masses and make them believe they've never felt so much love. We know from the scene where he showed Quent the Radiant that he knows how to activate it, and I'm interested to see how that will play out. I still have a lot to discuss about Season 3, so we'll be doing that live on Thursday, when I'll get to pick Aaron from Bald Move's brain about what David Goyer said in their conversation. Make sure to look for that, and come ask us some questions. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking about this season and the finale. And I think that is a great place to leave things. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.